In today's video, we are going to go through step by step how to set up a Bitbucket project in Jenkins. Are you new here? If you are, welcome. And if you are new here, you don't know who I am. My name is Darren Pope, and I'm a developer advocate for CloudBees. If you've been watching this series of videos, you know that we've walked through how to create a pipeline, how to create multi-branch, using both GitHub and Bitbucket. I've also done a video about creating a GitHub organization within Jenkins, and today we are going to go into detail how to create a Bitbucket project inside of Jenkins. Now, what is a Bitbucket project? Well, if you think back to what a multi-branch pipeline is, a multi-branch pipeline is roughly equivalent to a folder of pipeline jobs that map to each of the branches. A Bitbucket project job is roughly equivalent to a folder of multi-branch projects that then themselves have pipeline jobs. So it is a folder of folders of jobs. But why is that important to you? If you can set up a Bitbucket project correctly, as a Jenkins administrator, your life will be much easier. Let's level set what we're going to be working with today. I have a Jenkins controller running 2.277.1. It has an agent connected to it with a label of Linux. I also have an ngrok tunnel set up to be able to receive webhooks from Bitbucket Cloud. For the Bitbucket project that we're using today, I have a Bitbucket project called Planet Pope, and within this Planet Pope project, I have 3 repositories. I have a Micro 1, a Micro 2, and a multi-branch sample app. We're going to use these in a specific way so you can see what we're going to be doing. Let's take a quick review of Micro 1. We can see here that Micro 1 only has a README, and Micro 2 has the same. Now, the first thing that we're going to need to do is set up an app password within our Bitbucket account. So I'm going to go to my account settings, and under my personal settings, I am going to go to app passwords. Now, everything I'm doing today is Bitbucket Cloud. The steps to make this work with Bitbucket Server are a bit different. Down below in the description, there are links to different knowledge base articles to help you configure what I'm doing today for Bitbucket Cloud for Bitbucket Server. Okay, let's get back to creating our app password. We're going to say create app password. I am going to give it a label of Jenkins-Darren Pope. Get rid of that leading space there. I'm going to check 2 of these permissions. The first checkbox is going to be pull requests read, but you'll also notice as I check this box that repositories read was checked at the same time. I'm also going to allow my controller to manage webhooks for me today, so I'm going to check the checkbox webhooks read and write. So 2 explicit permissions set, pull request read, and webhooks read and write. And that's the only 2 permissions that I need to set up. Remember, there is a 3rd permission implicitly because of the pull request, and that is repositories read. Let's click on create. And it's going to give you an app password. So I'm going to grab this app password and stick it off to the side. What we want to do now is take this app password that we just set up and set it up as a credential within our controller. So let's go to our controller. And by the way, I want to reiterate one thing that I missed earlier. We are running Jenkins 2.277.1. When it was installed with install suggested plugins, and I installed 1 extra plugin, and that is the Bitbucket branch source plugin, in order for this to work today. So let's go to Manage Jenkins, Manage Credentials, Global, and add credentials. Now the type of credential that we're going to be using, or kind, is username with password. The username is going to be the account username, so in my case it is Darren Pope. The password is going to be the password that was just generated. And just so I can keep track of what I'm using, my ID is going to be Jenkins-Darren Pope, which is the exact same as the label of the app password over here. You can set it to whatever you want, but I like having my passwords that are set here to be the same ID as what I have over in my controller. Let's click on OK. So now we have a username with password, Jenkins-Darren Pope. Now, in order for our controller to be able to manage webhooks, we need to make one more configuration within our controller. We're going to go to Dashboard, Manage Jenkins, Configure System, and we are going to go down to Bitbucket Endpoints. Now you can see here already that Bitbucket Cloud is visible. If you are using Bitbucket Server, what you would do is click on Add, and then select Bitbucket Server, and then fill out the information as you need. But since I am using Bitbucket Cloud, that's all I need. Let's click on Manage Hooks. Now it's going to scroll down a little bit, so I'll scroll back up. The credentials that we pick are the credentials that we just set up from the app password. And I'm also going to explicitly set my custom Jenkins root URL. Now it happens to be the same as what I've already set for this controller. I'm just duplicating it just because. Let's click on Save. Before we continue and create the Bitbucket project, let's go back over to our project within Bitbucket, and we'll take a look at one of the repositories, specifically Micro2, and take a look at webhooks, just so we're able to set a baseline right now. What we can see here is there are no repository hooks here in the top. Just remember this as we move through the rest of the setup. Okay, let's go back over to our controller. And let's create our job. I'm going to give it an item name of my account name within Bitbucket. It doesn't really matter. That's just what I'm going to name it. I could give it the project name, but I'm not going to right now, just the account name. I'm going to select Bitbucket Team Project. I'm going to click OK. For credentials, under Projects, we're going to select the Jenkins-Darren Pope credential. The owner is going to be the account name of Bitbucket, not the project name. Like in my case, my project name is Planet Pope. This needs to be the owner name or the account name. If you ever question what is valid, go over to the help and it will tell you. So I could give it the Bitbucket user account name or the Bitbucket team. I don't have a team set up, just a project, so I'm having to use the account name. It could be a project if I'm using Bitbucket Server, but I'm using Bitbucket Cloud. We're going to leave our behaviors default for right now. So the default behaviors are discover branches, discover pull request for both from origin and from forks. And we have our project recognizer of Jenkinsfile. I'm actually going to go ahead and add in one other behavior. In the case of this job, I only want to bring in repositories that begin with micro. Right now I have a micro 1, a micro 2, and a multi-branch sample app all residing within my Planet Pope project. But I only want to keep micro 1 and micro 2 in scope. So I'm going to filter by name under repositories. Now note, there is also a filter by names under within repository. This is not the one that we want. We want to use filter by name with wildcards under repositories here at the top. I have to scroll back up in order to set this value, and you can see that the include is just star. I'm going to change this to micro star. So let's recap what we've done so far. We set the credential, we set the owner to the account name. We added a filter by name for the repositories. We only want to keep repositories in scope that start with micro. And we've left all of the other behaviors intact. Let's go and click on Save. Now remember that both micro 1 and micro 2 only have readmes. They do not have a Jenkins file yet. So what we're going to expect to see here is nothing. Because our project recognizers, which we'll look at again in a moment, are only Jenkinsfile. So what we can see here is it's scanning the organization that's using our credential. We can see that it looked up micro 1, Jenkinsfile not found. As we expected, micro 2, Jenkinsfile not found. Again, as expected. And then we are ignoring multi-branch sample app because we do not want to have that repository in scope. I'm creating a Bitbucket project job type to only build specific repositories based on a business rule, a technical reason. It could be any number of things. I was just wanting to show you how to be able to do that because you might want to have separate sets of things. This is one way to do it, is by filtering the repository. Okay, just to prove this out, let me click on my name up here and watch what happens as we click on this in the breadcrumb. It now includes the full name of the account, the description name of the account, if you will, from Bitbucket. Now, from a Jenkins perspective, the folder name is still all lowercase, no spaces, Darren Pope. And as we can see, this folder is empty. Remember, a Bitbucket project type is a folder of multi-branch jobs. And multi-branch jobs are folders of pipeline jobs. In order to get a repository to show up here, we are going to have to include a Jenkins file in our repository. And just to see that more clearly, I'm going to click on Configure. And if we scroll down here to Project Recognizers, we're just saying, hey, if I find a Jenkins file, then that is a valid project. Keep that in mind. So let's go and create a Jenkins file for micro 1. Okay, here we are in our micro 1 repository on the main branch. Let's add a Jenkins file. What I have here is just a very basic declarative pipeline using the Linux agent, label Linux, and also I have a single step echo hello from Jenkinsfile. Let's go ahead and save this. I'm going to add it, and we're going to commit it. And then we are going to push the file up. Now, as we pushed this Jenkins file up to our repository, at this point, a webhook is not sent from Bitbucket Cloud back to our Jenkins controller. So what we're going to have to do is we are going to need to scan this organization again so that that new repository shows up within the organization. And let's just prove that again real quick. Let's go back over to our Micro1 repository. All we have done is commit Jenkinsfile. So if we look at Micro1 and we go to repository settings, webhooks, we currently do not have any hooks made yet, because within Bitbucket Cloud, all webhooks occur at the repository level, not at the account level. So let's go back into our organization and scan organization folder now. Let's click on the log and watch what happens. So we can see here that it's looking up Darren Pope Micro1 for branches. Jenkinsfile was found. And then we'll go and take a look at that again in a moment. But we're still skipping Micro2 just because there is no Jenkinsfile found. And we are ignoring multibranch sample app because it does not start with micro. Let's click on the organization. Here now we can see Micro1 shows up. If we click into Micro1, we can see that the main branch was found, because that's where we put the Jenkins file, is on the main branch. If we take a look at the job output, we can see that the job is running. And it completes with hello from Jenkinsfile. So this worked as expected. Let's go back over to Bitbucket and let's refresh our webhooks page for Micro1. And what you'll see now is that the webhook going back to our Jenkins controller has now been set up. So it's going through ngrok. It includes the path that we need that the Bitbucket branch source plugin is listening on. So our webhook is set up correctly. So from this point forward, any changes that we make to Micro1 should emit a webhook that then our controller will consume. Now what we want to do is create a branch off of our main branch so we can go through the pull request process. So let's flip back over to our shell. Let's just do a get checkout -b fix-123. So we've created our new branch. And what we need to do is push this branch. We're not going to make any changes to it. Set upstream origin fix-123. And then let's watch what happens. So we've pushed the new branch, the new local branch, up to our repository. So if we were to take a look at Micro1, we're going to see here that there are now two branches, main and fix-123. If we come back over here to Micro1 in our controller, we now see that fix-123 was found, and it's building based off of a branch event. Now, as this completes, what we will see is the same thing that we saw over on our main branch, because nothing has changed. All we did was create a new branch off of our main branch, so the output is exactly the same as what we saw on our main branch. Let's modify our Jenkins file now on fix-123 and see what happens. So this is us getting ready to create a pull request that will be going back to main from fix-123. So let's go to our Jenkins file, and I am going to grab a couple of new stages to add to our Jenkins file. So I'm adding two stages. We're leaving the hello stage there. We're adding a stage for the fix branch, so this stage will only apply to branches that start with fix dash. That's what this when conditional means. And we're also adding a stage for the pull request. So this stage will only apply to when the branch begins with PR dash, and that's uppercase PR dash. So we'll see how this works in just a few moments. Let's go ahead and click on Save. And let's add the changes and get commit update Jenkinsfile. And then let's push this to our repository and see what happens. So the only thing that we expect to happen here is that the Fix 123 job should fire off, in which we can see it already is. It is in a pending state. Let's see how this goes. Okay, here we go. And as it completes, we can see that we have our standard hello from Jenkinsfile. For our fix branch stage, we're just catting out our README. We're skipping our PR stage because we weren't on a branch that started with PR dash. So this works as expected. Now what we want to do is to go back into Bitbucket and create a pull request. So we'll go back to Micro 1. I'm going to click on Pull Requests. And in the upper right-hand corner, click on Create Pull Request. Now you can do this however you want. This is just an example. So what we want to do is we want to create a pull request going from Fix 123 into main. And I am going to also go ahead and close Fix 123 automatically as it's merged. So that looks pretty good to me. Let's click on a pull request, or click on Create Pull Request. Okay, our pull request has been created, but we don't want to merge it just yet. We can see here the only change was the 2 stages that we added in our Jenkins file. Let's go back over to our controller. Click on Micro 1. We still have our 2 branches, main and Fix 123, but now we also have a pull request of 1, and it's a PR 2. And if we take a look back over here at our pull request, we can see that this is PR number 2. If we click on PR2, we can see that it's building for us. And we can see from the output, we still have our hello. We've skipped the fix branch stage, but we did run the PR stage. So again, all of this is working as expected. Now let's go ahead and merge our pull request from Fix 123 into main. And let's see what happens. So I'm going to click on Approve, and I am going to click on Merge. So just to review this, the source is Fix 123, the destination is main, commit message, and we're going to close the source branch, which means we're going to close Fix 123. Let's click on Merge. And we can see that it's been merged here. Let's go back over to our controller and see what's going on. We'll click on Micro 1. We can see now that Fix 123 is obsolete. We can see our pull request is obsolete, and what I mean by obsolete is the strike through on both of these. So these branches no longer exist, so they can be cleaned up. But let's go take a look at main. Let's see what's going on in main. We can see that it was started by a branch event here at the top. And we can see here that we have now all three of our stages, both hello, and we're skipping fix, and we're skipping PR because both of those stages are skipped due to the conditional because we are now on the main branch. One thing you may have noticed when we were on the home page for the Micro 1 repository is that there was a tags field. But you can see that there are no tags because we haven't created any tags yet. Well, let's go and create a tag for this repository. Before we actually go and create the tag, let's go ahead and click on Scan Multi-Branch Pipeline now to clean up these obsolete branches. So I clicked on that. Let's click on Micro 1. And the only thing that's left now is main, and there's nothing in pull request. Now we're ready to create our tag. So how do we do this? All we need to do is let's go ahead and get checkout main. I'm also going to do a get pull because we've made a lot of changes. Now what I want to do is get tag -a v10 1.0. Okay, so there's the command to create our tag. And now let's push our tag up to Bitbucket. So now within Bitbucket, if we take a look at Micro 1, what we will see under our branches is now we only have main because we merged fix 123 into main. And now we have a tag of v1.0. Let's go back over to our Micro 1 job and let's see what happened here. At this point, the tag is not showing. And this is actually really simple. Let's go back to the configuration of our organization. Remember, this is a Bitbucket project job type. So the configurations for this job have to happen at the organization level, not at the multi-branch level. Let's go over to configure. And you'll notice within repository, we have discover branches, we have discover pull request, but what we don't have here is discover tags. So by default, tags are not discovered. This is up to you. You may not want tags to show up in here ever, and that's okay. That's your choice. But I want you to see what it looks like. Let's click on Save. So as we save, it's going to do another organization scan. So it's going out and looking at Micro 1 and Micro 2 and skipping multi-branch sample app again. If we go back over now to Micro 1, we still have our main branch, but now we also have a tag. And we can see our tag is v10. Also notice that the job did not automatically run. So if you want to run this for tag 1, that's great. You can do a build now, and the job will start. So if we were to take a look at it here, then we can see that it started up and it will continue running until completion. So let's stop and take a look at what we have right now with Micro 1. I have a main branch, I have a tag that's completing running, and within Bitbucket, I have the Micro 1 repository, and we also have reflected here the main branch and the single tag. Up to this point, we've spent a lot of time in Micro 1. Let's go do something a little bit different over in Micro 2. So let's pull up our shell for Micro 2. Whoops, do this. Micro 2. And let's go ahead and just do a pull to make sure we're up to date. We are. Great. Okay, so what we're going to do here now is we are going to create a Jenkins file, but we're not going to name it Jenkinsfile. Thinking back to our project recognizers, the only project recognizer that we have at the moment is Jenkinsfile. So I'm going to create something that has a different name, specifically Jenkinsfile-M2. Now, for this Jenkins file, it's going to look very similar to what we've been using for our other Jenkins file. We can see here everything looks exactly the same, except now it's a hello from Jenkinsfile-M2. So let's go ahead and save this. Let's add it, commit it, and let's push it up. The thing to remember here is that as we've pushed this to Micro 2, since there are no webhooks set up on Micro 2 yet, we're going to need to scan the organization again in order for this repository to be picked up. So let's go over and do that. Let's click on Scan Organization Folder now. If we were to take a look at the log, what we're going to see is that Jenkins file was found for Micro 1. Nothing's changed there. But here we see that Micro 2 main branch, there is no Jenkins file found. Well, why is that? Well, we just did it. We created a Jenkins file, but we didn't name it Jenkins file. We named it Jenkinsfile-M2. So what do we do? Well, what we're going to do in this case is we are going to modify our Bitbucket project job, and we are going to add a new project recognizer. We are going to add Jenkinsfile-M2. Now this is a contrived example. I understand that. But this also helps you understand that, oh, maybe I could name it a little bit differently so I know that looking at this Jenkins file, I know what this Jenkins file does versus just Jenkins file and you have to dig into it. So in the case of Jenkinsfile-M2, I know that the M2 echoes out a Jenkinsfile-M2, whereas I know Jenkinsfile, I don't know what it does, even though I do. It's just Jenkinsfile. You've been with me all along, right? So let's go ahead and click on Save. As we make the change to this job, it's going to do another scan. Let's watch what happens here. So Micro 1, still all good. We're focusing right now on Micro 2. So checking main branch from Micro 2, there is no Jenkins file found. Okay, no big deal. But then it says, oh wait, there's another one to check for. Oh, Jenkinsfile-M2 was found. And of course, multibranch was skipped again. So let's look and see what's going on here. So Micro 2 was found. We had pushed Jenkinsfile-M2 onto the main branch. If we take a look at the job run, we should see here in a few moments that we should get an echo of hello from Jenkinsfile-M2. And we can see here that we have our hello from Jenkinsfile-M2. So now we have both Micro 1 and Micro 2 showing up within our Bitbucket project or Bitbucket organization if you look at organization folder here on the left nav. So everything's working as expected at the moment. Now, what happens if you wanted to change the name or add a Jenkins file, a truly named Jenkins file, to the Micro 2 repository? So let's flip back over to our repository. Let's see what's here. Let's just make a copy of Jenkinsfile-M2. Call it Jenkinsfile. Now let's edit Jenkinsfile. And let's get rid of M2 there on the end, so it's just like the original Jenkins file that we had. Let's add this file. Let's commit it. And let's push it. Now, what do you think is going to happen? Think about all the steps we've had to this point. We added a project recognizer for Jenkinsfile-M2. We've now put a Jenkins file on the Micro 2 repository. what do you expect to see from the job run for Micro 2? Do you expect to see hello from Jenkinsfile M2 or hello from Jenkinsfile? Let's take a look and see what's going to happen. You can already see what is happening from this second line. It obtained a Jenkinsfile-M2 from this commit hash. So why did it not pick up the Jenkins file? It goes back to the configuration of the job. When we configured the job, we said Jenkinsfile first, Jenkinsfile-M2 second. We scanned the organization, it found Micro 2, and it found a Jenkinsfile-M2 on Micro 2. So from that point forward, unless it's told differently, it's going to continue using that Jenkins file for its configuration. And just to verify this, we can see down in the output that we have hello from Jenkinsfile M2. So let's go back to our organization level and let's just scan the folder now. Now before we scan it, I haven't clicked it yet, let's look at the last log. So the last log when it was scanned, when we were looking for Micro 2, which is this whole section right here, we can see there was no Jenkins file found, and then there was a Jenkinsfile M2 found. Let's go back up and click on Scan Now. Let's click on Log to follow what's going on. So Micro 1 is done first, but notice here, this time Micro 2 found the Jenkins file. So if we were to go back to Micro 2, it's not going to automatically run it, but if I click on Build Now, what we're going to see here is that it obtained the Jenkins file from this commit. So now instead of using Jenkinsfile-M2, it's now using Jenkins file. The thing to keep in mind here is when we take a look at our organization and we see our project recognizers, these project recognizers are in order. So as it's scanning, if it finds something, it stops. And from that point forward, unless you scan it again or it gets scanned in some way, shape, or form, that is going to be the script path, in this case, Jenkinsfile, and I'm using the phrase script path from here. It's going to continue using that until it gets scanned again and it happens to change. Now, I can reorder these. I can say that I want Jenkinsfile M2 to always be first. So I could put more specific items up front. So if those match first, then those are going to be the ones that are used. And I could have a fall through at the very end. It's like, okay, if none of the specifics are there, then just use a Jenkins file. Because if somebody did like what I just did, and I have both a Jenkins file and a more specific Jenkinsfile M2 in the repository, then you might not have the results that you're expecting. So I'm going to click on Save and reorder this, and let's see what happens when it scans Micro 2 this time. So we can see for Micro 1, it didn't find a M2, but it did find a Jenkins file, so that's good. But for Micro 2, it found Jenkinsfile M2 and did not even bother scanning for Jenkins file because it already found a match. So one last time, if we take a look at Micro 2 and we were to run the job again on the main branch, now we can see that it obtained the Jenkinsfile M2, and that is the Jenkins file that it used. To reiterate, a Bitbucket project job type is a folder of multi-branch jobs, and multi-branch jobs are folders of pipeline jobs. If you properly configure your Bitbucket project job as a Jenkins administrator, what you can have at that point if people follow the conventions that you set up through your configuration, so you had to make a configuration at some point, but if your customers follow the conventions that you've set forward, in the example that we saw today, I created a Bitbucket project job type that I'm only looking for repositories that start with micro. If I had a Jenkinsfile or a Jenkinsfile-M2 in the root of my repository, the multi-branch job is automatically created for me, and I, as a Jenkins administrator, did not have to add a new multi-branch job when that new repository was created. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach out to us on Twitter at CloudBeesDevs. If you haven't subscribed to CloudBees TV yet, why not? Take a moment, click on the subscribe button, and then ring that bell, and you'll be notified anytime there is new content available on CloudBees TV. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video.